Good morning and welcome. I'm Bob Pace. I'm your host of this morning's podcast, How to Fight CPS with Bob Pace. Also, how to hang on to your children, don't lose your children. CPS is a serious matter, and I know all of you are quite concerned about it. I too have been in CPS, so I know where you're coming from. And hopefully, this morning I can help you. So, I hope everyone's doing well this morning and are able to talk about your case and how I can help you. This is an interactive podcast. Uh, I'm on 14 times a week. I come on at 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific Standard Time for 1 hour. And then nighttime, I'm on for 1 hour at 7 p.m. for 1 hour. And that's all Pacific Standard Time. I live at Surf City, USA, and I'm broadcasting this morning from and from the beach, about a mile up from the beach. Right now, the winds are calm. It's overcast, kind of cloudy. And if you want to know the surf is down. It's flat. Anyway, um, you get a lot more in the show than you think of. But there are four ways you can interact with this podcast. Now, as I said, I'm on twice a day, and there is exception. On Sunday, I come on 2 hours early to go with my family to church. I'm on at 8 o'clock, not 10 o'clock on Sunday. And this Friday, I have a football game with my son, and I want to be there to cheer him on. And I'll be on at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, not at 7 p.m. I'll be on at 4 o'clock. So make your calendars. That's tomorrow, Sunday. Tomorrow, Friday. It's Friday Night Lights here in Surf City, USA, California. You found me on. It took me my eye like a bug just flew in my eye. That's one thing about working outside. You got to worry about bugs. Hopefully the bug will get on my eye. This is a podcast about an agency that I call the Child Protection System, abbreviated CPS. Now, in all the states and all the counties, it may have different acronyms. It may be in Arizona, it may be Department of Children's Services, DCS. It might be in Kentucky, a different name there. Um, it's the cabinet, is what they call their place in Kentucky. So when I say CPS, I mean all the agencies that are part of social service that deals with protection of your children from neglect and abuse. I emphasize neglect and abuse. Also, they're supposed to help families in needs. They need to keep that family together. Um, they can help you with food and clothing and shelter, education for your children, and medical for your medical needs. They also can provide you leads for jobs so you can be working. Social services is a government agency, and this branch of social services, the CPS, with the social services workers, are supposed to be very good at what they're doing. But I'm afraid what's happened is that they've been very corrupt lately. What I mean by corrupt is that they just want to make money off your child. They don't care. Now, they're also not only supposed to protect, but if they need to take your family apart, which most of the times they do with allegations, and when they hear allegations, they believe they're true, so you're guilty, and you have to prove you're innocent. It's the only court of law where you're guilty and you have to prove you're innocent. Now, as you are investigation, they find out through studies that the best parents are the biological parents. So they need to break your family. They first try to put your family with family members. That's real important to hear that. They don't put them into foster care. They may want to. They may want to traffic your child. It seems like their MO is they hear an allegation and they they take your um, child and they put them into foster care right away, even if they're not in imminent danger. Even if they're not in imminent danger. So I'm telling you that that you need to be very, very careful of not letting your child go. There's certain ways they can. I'll talk about the rules and stuff like that. But I'm really concerned about you all losing your children because it's a money making thing for them. If you haven't recognized now, it's $1 trillion business. They give out bonuses and incentives. They're corrupt, they're not transparent, they embezzle the money, and there are corrupt social workers. 90% of the people I've talked to, over 500 people, has said immediately their child was taken when there was an imminent danger. They gave up their child because they did not know the laws, and they let them in their home. They did not know the laws. They talk to them. They don't know the laws. So in here, you need to think about three things. Don't let them in your home. Don't let them take your children, and don't talk to them. Those are your three golden rules. Those are very important to remember. And I'll talk about them more in detail. But to interact with this podcast, you can have several ways. Now, you found me on Facebook, Fight CPS with Bob Pace. And I'm transmitting on YouTube using the StreamYard application. And by you just finding and being in this room, that is your first way of interacting with the podcast. You can listen, you can um, do emojis, you can do smiley faces and thumbs up and hearts. You also can give me stars. Down below, you can subscribe to my podcast. And if you want to get notified of upcoming podcasts, hit the notify button. And I love to have you as a regular in my room. Also, I get updates from some of you as you go through your case. Remember, you can reach me twice a day. That's pretty good. And it doesn't cost anything but having a computer and click your mouse. Now, if you wanted to talk, there's several ways in my show. Now, one way is to text in comments. Another way is to be a guest. And the fourth way is to actually talk on my phone. Now, if you have comments that you want to make, you want to type in the comments about your CPS question. It could be a question or a comment. Maybe you want to react to something, or you had a question for me, or any of the other people in this room, any of the other people in this room. And I gladly talk to you about that. I'm having trouble with my tie today. Shirt is pulled too far to the left. So it's hard looking at yourself trying to go the right way. Um, there, I think it looks a little bit better. So you start off by texting your name, your first name only. Now, why I ask that is because a lot of you have already given your name a Facebook name or a YouTube name, such as like psychedelic hippos or dancing butterflies or gone with the wind. So I like a name like Betsy, Bob, Tina, Debbie, Kathy, a typical easy name. So you type in your name, don't need to know a last name. And then what I like to do is see the city. If you don't want to know the city, you look for the county. You look for the county. The city is okay, but the county's fine too. Then you want to give your state. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to differentiate a little bit what area that CPS is good or bad. And so that's why I like that information. Now, country. It's very important with your country. And you probably say, well, why is he asking about country? Because I've found out that about 13 countries have texted into me about questions about CPS and something's happened to them in CPS. So it's a worldwide dilemma. It isn't just the U.S. The Child Protection Agency is posed to protect our children. I emphasize protect them, not abuse them, not traffic them, not, alienate them from their parents, and not to beat up on the parents. But CPS will. Sad to say there. So all I need is your city and country. So if you're from now, the countries I've heard so far has been Bangladesh, New Delhi, India, several countries in the continent of Africa. I've had Liberia in northwest Africa. I've had the western province of South Africa on the west coast. I've Rwanda, which is a country in central east Africa. I've had Mozambique, which is above um, South Africa on the east coast across from Madagascar. Then we go up to Europe and I've had England, Scotland, Wales, part of the United Kingdom, and Denmark and Sweden. Then across the pond, I've had North America where I've had Canada, British Columbia, Alberta, different parts of Canada provinces. I've also heard from the Canadian First Nation Indians. I heard from the tribes up there. And then in further south in the United States, I've heard from all 50 states. All 50 states have contacted me, including Washington, D.C. Also, the Native American Indian tribes have contacted me, like the Lakota Sioux at Rosebud Reservation, or the Cherokee at Oklahoma, or we have the Osage at Oklahoma. I've even heard from social workers, three of them. So I have a good idea about CPS in the United States. And then we go further south to Mexico, and I've had someone from Mexico City call me looking for daughters in Louisiana. Then further south in South America, I've had Guyana, which is east of Venezuela, north of Brazil, on the east coast of South America. Then across the Pacific Ocean to the land down under, I've had Australia. And I've heard from someone on the Gold Coast and from Melbourne on the state of Victoria. So it's a well crossed but talented of people. I've even heard from the Middle East, but it was in Arabic, so I didn't catch the name of it. So I think we're up to 14 countries so far that have done that. Now, when you type it, then follow with a couple parts of your case, I get understanding. Like, what is the makeup of your family? Are you a single parent? Are you a husband, wife? Are you a boyfriend, girlfriend? Are you partners? Are you the biological uh, mother and father of the children, or do you have different mothers, different fathers? If you're a single parent, is the father still involved? Those are things that help me understand you make up your family. Also, the ages of your children, the sexes of your children. Then, what were the allegations? More than just neglect and abuse, the details. And then, how were your children taken? Did you give permission to take them? Did they march in your home? Was there domestic violence going on? How did your children get taken? And then, where are you at your case? So, that is when you do comments. The same thing goes true when you call in. Um, you could do the same thing about your case. So I love to hear from you on that. A third way that you can interact with this podcast is to be scheduled as a guest. Now, I have a show producer. Her name is Grace, and she works really hard behind the scenes, and I appreciate her help. She tries to make this podcast interesting and helps me do a better job. Now, be a guest. All you have to do is pick one of my show times, my 14 show times. Now, I've already given you the times. I already give you the times. And so, with that being said, all you have to do They say, I want to be Bob's Sunday morning show or Bob's Friday night show or Bob's Wednesday morning show. That's all you do. And she'll contact you. She'll give you a link to StreamYard. Don't lose that link because if you get knocked off, you can use that link to get back on again. So that is an important link to use. You can reuse it again and again for that show. Now, she also will go over what you can do and not do on the podcast, such as no eating or smoking. And then on top of that, we do not use the names of children, judges, or social workers. And so she'll tell you other things. You need to speak up. You got to make sure your lighting's set up. The best way, of course, is a computer, but if you have a phone, that's okay too. So all you need to do is email Grace at vincentwdavis.com. That's Grace at vincentwdavis.com, and she'll get you aboard. Now, the fourth way to interact with the podcast is to call me. My phone number to call in is 626 698 0990. And you can call me, and I will answer the call. It goes right to my phone. We use Vonage here at the office. And so you can call me that number, and I'll answer. Now, I only answer between the hours that the show's on. So if you call me before, after the show, leave a message, and I'll text you the show times. But I love to hear from you. I can take up to 9 of you at one time. It's a total of 10. Most have had been 4, but that's great. So my call-in number is 626-698-0990. And I'll have a guest from time to time. Now, when you call in, I put you on speakerphone. So you got to make sure your background noise is off. Like if I'm talking, the background, you need to turn me down or off. And then you need to make sure your volume's up so I can hear you. Those are important things to do. And start off again about your case, what your family makeup of, the allegations, how your children were taken, and where you at on your case. And that'd be great. That'd be great. Now, I do want to mention another phone number on the screen so you won't be confused. The phone number on the screen, 888-888-6582, is the office that produces this podcast. It's the law office of Vincent W. Davis' Associates. And it's where Mr. Davis, who's the chief lawyer there, has set up a bunch of lawyers that work in different areas of the field. There's criminal law, there's divorce, there's workman comp, there is immigration, real estate law, and of course the most important one is dependency law. That's the family juvenile dependency law. That's where we're at here with CPS. That's where we're at with CPS. So, and Mr. Davis is the lead attorney in CPS. He has 35 years of experience. He's a trial attorney, and he's been doing this a long time, fighting CPS and getting your children back. So it's dependency law with juvenile and family all tied in together. So he will help you with your case. Now, you can call that number. You'll reach the office. Make sure you tell them that Bob Pace sent you. And if you want to speak to Mr. Davis to retain him as your lawyer, you can do so. But I have another way that you can talk to him first at a discounted rate. And it's my rule number 1 that I'm going to give you right now. And so you can book a discounted Zoom consultation with attorney Mr. Vincent Davis for 30 minutes. But he must go through this website to get the discounted rate. He'll talk to you for $60. I made special arrangements that he'll only charge you $60 for 30 minutes of his time to do a consultation. You go to the website, https://candidly, CALENDLY.com /apps, APPTS, VWD /Bob Pace. That's BOBPACE. It's on the screen at the bottom of my screen there. You can see it there. And he will consult you and talk to you for 30 minutes. It's well worth you do so, because one of my first rules is you need to find an attorney. And I know a lot of you are saying out there, well, I have an attorney, my court appointed attorney. Well, yeah, he's free, the price is right, but what you have is a criminal attorney, not a dependency law attorney. A criminal attorney who's just starting out, that is paid a low salary, that will not fight for your case, will just make it so that eventually it goes away. They go with the flow. They're friends of the social worker attorneys. They're friends of the judge. They're friends of the court. They won't fight with you. They won't meet with you. They have a caseload of 30 more clients, so they don't have time. They don't have time. So you're really going to lose your children if you use a court-appointed attorney. But that may be all you have, because I know money is expensive. I had to sell my house to hire Mr. Davis. I had to sell, but my family comes first. If I could get a credit line, or you can sell your house, you may have to do that, because your children are your family, and I know most of you in this room are like that. Now, I've had some interesting guests. The other day I had Elizabeth, who last Tuesday had retained Mr. Davis and had gone into court on Tuesday. I haven't heard back, but I hope it went well for Elizabeth. Um, so there are people that give me updates, like KK Richardson from Brooklyn, New York, gave me an update that she's got CPS on the ropes, and she's trying to settle the tanglement of a mess. It's so bad that the non-biological parent, the father of her daughter, once had visitations. He's incarcerated. He's never had a chance to meet the daughter or something, but he's caused a mucky woo, and they need to bring him out of prison to do something. It's some crazy thing. But I'm telling you, these CPS people are corrupt. They're very, 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 very corrupt. Now, if you want to know what a typical social worker, and I've heard a lot of different horror stories, but the one that really sticks in my gut is about the pink ladies in Prescott, Arizona. In the year 2022, 8 social workers with over 25 years of experience decided to buy a pink t-shirt and wear them. But what was so bad is they stenciled on the front of the t-shirt, professional child kidnappers. And on the back, as they walked by you, they said, do you know where your children are? Now that is terrible. That is uncalled for. They did it, paraded at Costco and Walmart, and Target and Best Buys and Kmart and all the different big stores. Well, the people in Richmond didn't like that, so they got them fired, as well as the director. But that wiped out the Prescott social services of CPS. So no one's protecting children. There's one person left to handle all the complaints or things that come in there. So you have to be careful out there. You can't trust the social workers. My social worker was really bad. Really, 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 really bad. Now, I have several ways I can go on my podcast. It's up to you guys how you want me to talk in this podcast. I can talk about my rules. I have 5 of them. I already talked about one rule. I can talk to you about social workers and what to expect. and what kind of I don't know if you want to call them animals. They're just bad people with no social skills. Or if we can talk about the topics I've opened. I have over 50 topics of things like the Welfare Indian Child Act of 1978, WICA, um, not WICA. Oh boy, I can't pronounce the name. Anyway, there's the 388 motion. There's the 160 JV hearing. Um, I talked about ICPC, the organization that transports children between states. There's a lot I can talk about. Also, I have subscribed to Cora Digest, and I have my thing focused on CPS. So there's hundreds of cases that I can talk about. In fact, I think I'll go there right now and talk about some of them, unless somebody else has something else I want to do. Okay, now this first one talks about fathers in family court. And it says, why are family courts so against fathers? Now, what CORE does is it gets answers from its subscribers. And um, this is what a person named Rick, who is a JD in law at the University of Washington, he said he practiced family law for 40 years ago when a dad wanted custody of his children. I would ask a series of questions. The questions varied with the ages of the children. Sample questions are: who is your child's best friend? You ever met the friend's parents? What size clothing does your child wear? What is your child's teacher's name? How did you meet him or her? Do you attend your child's last parent teacher conference? What is your child's favorite subject in school? Who stays home with their children when they're sick? Who is your child's doctor? When did you last talk to him or her? And this guy, Rick, said he had many more. And he said that dads in general don't do very well with questions. Mom did. My wife is who's now retired, a family doctor. She told me that 90% of the time when kids came to the doctor, they're brought by moms. When dads brought them, 90% of the time, they didn't know the child's medical history or they had a note from the mom. All this tells you who the primary caregiver of the children was. Other factors sometimes overrode this, but who the primary caretaker was important in the development of the child. So the courts were not prejudiced against dads, they looked to the best interest of the child. Fortunately, this has changed over the years. Many more dads are more and more involved in the everyday care of their children. As a result, more and more dads are getting custody and more sharing custody when until plans are being ordered or agreed upon. Well, that was interesting from Rick. Um, so, I find that parents should be both involved. They should take turns with the medical and the school. They should try to go to parent teachers conferences together. I know a lot of your fathers work, and sometimes they work in the evening, so it is kind of hard. But that was an interesting question. Okay, let's see if I can find the next one here. This one is talking about if I go into a custody hearing representing myself, how come the judge will not look? Well, let's see here. Let's see what the answer for this one is. Now, this is from Jackie. And Jackie says, you decide to represent yourself in court of law. The procedural rules of the court do not go away. So that's why it's so important you have a lawyer. Whenever you decide to represent yourself in court of law, you should begin with submitting motions, verbally, in writing, or both. You can motion the court for a trial either verbally in court or by written motion. All written motions must be submitted according to the rules of court. A written motion must be sent both to the court and to the district attorney's office. For example, when you submit a motion for disclosure and a motion for discovery to obtain what evidence the prosecution intends to use in court and whatever evidence you have reason to believe the prosecution um, has, then these motions are um, moot if the prosecutor's office has not received said motions in order to comply. See, that's why when you try to represent yourself, it's called pro se, you're going to get eaten alive because the technicality will boot you out of the court. The prosecution already has submitted evidence to the court during the grand jury hearing. As you are being tried, the court has already accepted these evidence as relevant. There should be a pretrial hearing to lay out any issues between the parties before trial. Courts do not simply go into trial like depicted in the movie with both sides arguing unknown arguments and hitting each other with unknown witnesses. You must submit any evidence that you need to present to the district attorney's office. You must submit to the district attorney a complete list of any witnesses you intend to call up with a brief of your line of questioning will entail, as well as the required information concerning witnesses. There is a quick outline. It is in no way intended to be a complete how to do on self representation in court. In short, you need to review and study the relevant court procedures for your state as soon as you decide to undergo self representation. These can be found online with necessary court documents filled out. All documents submitted to the court must be in compliance with rules of the court, and you need to ensure that you're reviewing the court procedures and documents for the type of proceedings that you're going through, as there are different rules for different types of cases. For example, rules of criminal trial are not exactly the same as rules for civil trial. There's also different rules for juvenile court. If the judge does not offer you a chance to speak, it's likely you have no idea what's going on in the first place, so you're likely just making moot comments or creating disorder in the courtroom. I have represented myself several times in court, both federal and state, and the judges have always given me the opportunity to speak and present whatever arguments I wish to present. You should also be mindful that courts generally discourage people from representing themselves, as people hardly understand how the court work proceedings are. So, in short, it looks like this person um, didn't really do very well in representing himself, and that is a really hard thing to encompass. A hard thing to encompass. Now, here's one about foster kids. Here's one about foster kids. Now, the question is are foster kids allowed to stay with their foster family after they reach 18? What if they're not ready to leave? The answer to this question, and this is by Actus, says by law in my state, they have to move out the day they turn 18. They have to, um, uh, no matter if they're in high school or whatever the case may be. That sounds like a terrible state. If the foster child is found in your home after the age of 18, you won't be fostering anymore. I was even to believe charges will be filed on me if that happens. I can file extension stay, but that can only improve them in extreme situations. I think it's absolutely absurd. I get they're 18, but just to be out on your own because you're legally is insane to me. I do believe that some sneak ways around it. Maybe they can leave for a certain amount of time and then come back. If I ever have a child with me until they turn 18, I'll be looking for a loophole. Now, there's an update to this scenario. This has changed. The person said, I first started foster care. Currently, you can get extension to their 21 if they're in school and college counts, which I think is wonderful. So if they do not go to college, they can stay if they pass the necessary checks for foster care. Sadly, there are a lot of children in the system that would not pass these checks due to the trauma they've faced growing up. So that was an unusual thing about staying after 18. So, now, here's another one. The question is about child protection services. Um, let's see. It takes a while. Okay. Jasmine says, here's the question she had. What is your opinion of Child Protection Services, CPS, of the Department of Children and Family Services, DCF? Um, do you think these organizations actually help the kids and families they serve? Jasmine said, nope, I lost my three children to the state for a year, 3 months, and 23 days without an investigation. Wow. The father of my older two boys called CPS on me out of retaliation because I had a child with another man who I'm still with and have another baby boy. God. He didn't take my moving on lightly, served. He was just released from prison after serving 2 years for aggravated assault on a family member, which was her. He had no clue about anything in my life because I had no contact during this time. He's very abusive, got addicted to cocaine at 18 years of age. Anyway, after he got out, he felt hurt, called CPS. I met the caseworker for a very brief explanation, 5 minutes long interview in December 2014. Strangely, she only asked questions about my ex and nothing about my boys or myself. I answered her questions and never heard from her again. I didn't sign papers. She didn't tell me she'd call me or anything, but well, that was Mrs. McCullough. Now, this lady was a hood rat, and I have reason to believe they slept together. I have a text asking to see my boys for a 30-day contact. I asked her what she meant. She stated that when this is an open case, which I had no clue, she had to see the kids every 30 days. Mind you, the call was the father of my older two, my third child, and his father had nothing to do with the call. However, she asked me to tell the father she never met or spoke with to bring my infant to the office tomorrow or she's going to go to the courts. I had him take him to her. He called me back bawling. I was at work. He told me that she took my baby boy from him. Again, she met the father, but she filed suit against him with zero allegations against him to get the baby removed from both of us and toss him into foster care. I blew up her phone because I didn't know what the hell was going on. She finally answered and she asked me, "Do you want to know why you lost your kids?" I lost it at that point. She told me I had to go to the office to find out. It took an hour to get there, but mother came to keep me from going to jail because I'll lose my damn mind. We got there. She's sitting with her supervisor, another hood rat, not exaggerating. They asked again, "Do you want to know why we took your kids?" I was very upset at this point. I could not stay in my chair. My mom had to put me in a chokehold, and an HPD officer had to come in on the meeting. I then found out that I was being accused of physical abuse of my kids and molesting my infant, and supposedly taking cocaine, never tested for anything, and that I was accused of being a domestic violence incident with a father she never met or interviewed. I again lost it. She took everything the other father said, didn't investigate, went to court to obtain emergency removal under oath. The kicker, she gave my older two boys to their father. I had no clue where they were until the first court appearance. My infant, some foster care, it was awful. I wanted blood, still do something. I was dead. I wanted this woman dead. She laughed at why I reacted. And then I could not believe it. I learned that there was corruption in the CPS system. This happens every day to innocent parents. We went through the court proceedings. There's an argument every time. I learned my constitutional rights, statutory rights, and the Department of Family Parent Service policy, which of course was all violated. I knew it was corruption when they found cocaine in my system without me even being tested. I argued with the judge, kids' lawyers, and get nothing but threats of jail time. I didn't stay silent at my court appearance. I never stay silent. I fought. They tried to force me to sign my rights or did not. I told them to take me to trial. They began telling the courts that I was mentally unstable. My attitude was so bad I'd be in danger for my kids. I told the court this is not Mama Bear. I'm not calming anything down until I get my boys back. The judge sat quietly. She told us to mediate. We did. They wanted my rights terminated so bad. We got nowhere, almost physically fought. It was just a bunch of old lives that got into this little position of abuse. A week before the trial, they dropped the case after a year, 3 months, and 23 days. They dropped it. Everything that was alleged was going to have to be proven at trial. They couldn't prove a damn thing because they didn't investigate. I got my boys back in March of 2016. The situation forced me into school. I hope to become a family law civil rights attorney. I've learned my rights. I'm helping other parents go through the same thing. There are many in every color, mostly poor. I learned that CPS is powerless without the parents or the court's permission. That that we don't have to talk to them without a warrant. And that you don't have to know anything about the Constitution. I've been in federal court as a plaintiff in lawsuit for 2 years. It has begun very difficult for them. I'm expecting a settlement this year. Wow, that was a pretty gnarly story there about a woman fighting with CPS and how corrupt they are. And so that was a bad case. If anybody would like to talk about something else or have me switch, I go to. I'm just reading you different scenarios here. Um, this one here is something that is very common. Has someone ever unjustifiably reported you to Child Protection Services? What is the outcome? Well, I can relate to that. My case was terrible because my in-laws, who are lay people, were constantly, my wife's mother, father, three sisters, and her brother were constantly once a week saying that we weren't doing this with our kids. We weren't taking care of them, weren't feeding them, weren't putting clothes on them, weren't cleaning them. They weren't going to school. It went on and on for 5 years. So I know what unjustified complaints can be. Now, this person is called Mac McIntaka. And he says, I have a friend right now who's currently on the receiving end of CPS's workers' gentle care. While it isn't abusive behavior on their part, the CPS is very slim. I know there are always different sides to the story. And what she tells me, only one side. But I've seen her with kids. I've seen how much they love her and trust her. I've seen her in a house. I've seen the turmoil in life and what has this happened. I've, I haven't been to court dates, but I was at the meeting where they determined the kids should be taken. I gave testimony on her behalf. Even her lawyer, the best in town for CPS case, is baffled, wondering why a mix of what seemed like a very small things needed uh, education and supervision led to three kids taken away. Kids missing just a few days or the limit of school, a trip to the doctor for a baby bumping his head. Doctor didn't call CPS. They found out about it through and added to the list. Forgetting to take them to their appointments when her whole life was turned upside down by abusive ex. I'm not really a messy house. I really a neat freak and be the first to say something if warranted. Being accused of missing a drug test because the CPS worker forgot to call the company and gave them the order. I was there when this happened. Most damning, a welt on my baby's bottom that happened when he was in custody of the father. There's literally nothing more to this case. All three kids were taken from her with only supervised visits, as well as attending the meeting. I've seen paperwork and talked to her on drug scheme. I saw the CPS worker as she made order with a smile, refused to let the mom even say goodbye to her baby, and walk out of the room saying in a sing-song voice, "It's Friday, yay!" as the mother sobbed in the arms of her attorney. Some of these stories are really sad, and it really hurts me because I read them and it is sad. Now here's another one here. Has anyone lost their kid due to termination from CPS? And Thomas says the saddest thing I ever seen were smokers outside the hospital doors. You might be acquainted with this Eddar's song, but it's exactly what happens all the time. The question described by the question. My uncle's a social worker and visited them all the time. Parents who lost their kids through termination CPS. There are parents, by the way, the quotation marks are important. Teenage parents, parent of people with drugs or gambling addiction, general retards who flunk every class they ever had, that still think the quotation marks again. They can run a household. People think having babies is right, just like buying teddy bears or pets. People who can't spell responsibility. People with psychiatric issues so severe that a baby would never make it. And still, they want those babies. My uncle tries to help people paying bills, looking for a job, stop gambling 10 hours per day, think outside the conspiracy trap, feeding the kids if there are any left, using contraptions, you name it. Without people like my uncle, these guys and gals are lost. But not the greatest victims. The greatest victims are the children. They grow up in a loveless household where a mom and dad can hardly write or read and have no idea whatsoever how to help their kids in school matters and consider Doritos and Pepsi as a decent school meal. Most of them are mentally so much behind that it takes a miracle to convince them that their kids need to brush their teeth, that reading is a good thing and that's not okay for their 12-year-old daughter to engage with a 17-year-old friend. Many of these kids will make the same mistakes of their parents, although they'll vow to be different. That's often how child abuse works, clinically very hard to escape. The most frustrating and sad thing is the editor's of songs, though. My uncle visited the Anderson again. They have 6 children. Although both parents are only 24-year-olds and have lost every single one of them through CPS termination. When Mary Lee Anderson opens the door to let my uncle in, he sees her belly and immediately knows what's going on. And number 7 will be taken away from them in no time because the very fact that she's pregnant shows how desperate the situation is. For Mary Lee will never understand. She loves them teddy bears. Oh, that was. It's hard to filter some of these things here. Here's a question: were you able to prove to CPS that claims made against you were made up by someone trying to get revenge, and CPS believed you? Was anything done about it other than closing your case? This person, Callie, said years ago I moved into a duplex with my 2 children. At the time, they were about 1 and 4 years old. My landlady warned me immediately that her other tenant was an awful woman who always called the cops on persons that previously rented my side of the duplex. I assured her that I was a model citizen and good neighbor. There could not possibly be any reason for the troubled tenant to cause problems with me. Boy, was I wrong. She accused me of everything you could possibly imagine, which turned out to be a good thing in my case because obvious this woman liked to invent stories. So when the cops showed up for the billionth time, but this time with CPS, they simply asked me, "Are you beating your children? Are you starving them? Are you letting them run in the street, naked, etc.?" But I think because they knew that it was unfounded, they actually let me read the whole report. Here's the funny part: the woman accused me of being a prostitute and drug dealer, which they didn't even question me about because it probably seemed even too stupid to them that I'm guessing. She also noted in her testimony they were the same vehicle, but mine was disrepaired. So I brought out to the worker and police car, if I was a drug dealer or prostitute, would I have a way better car than her? Nobody laughed at my joke, so I did try not to be funny. In the end, they recommend that I get an anti-harassment order against her and never go and knock on my door again. Wow. Um, I've talked about these uh, articles. I hope some of them helped you out. It's a different thing to talk about things like that. I do want to mention a couple things since we have about 8 minutes left or 7 minutes left. That it's very, very important that you understand that you're in a system that's very corrupt. In my case, was corrupt. Now, I mentioned about the pink ladies with the stencil on the front of the shirt, professional kidnappers. Well, my social worker did an awful thing to me. During the course, um, my wife's sister and husband wanted to adopt our daughter. We didn't want that to happen. So we had hired attorney Vincent Davis, who was asking questions to the social worker about the parents that wanted to adopt our our daughter. And he mentioned that did the parents have any domestic violence? The soldier said, "Oh no, no, they're great parents. They have no domestic violence." Well, our attorney, Mr. Davis, pulled out a folder with about 30 police reports of heavy, extreme physical domestic violence at the residence. So she committed, the social worker committed perjury, and she lied. She was embarrassed, and we could sue her for what she did. But what she also did is she retaliated. She told her parents she'd never see her daughter again. So what she did, she told her 12-year-old daughter, this is sad. She said, I want you to divorce from your parents and your family. Divorce your mom, dad, your 2 brothers, your grandparents, your aunt, uncles, and cousins. And then I want you to change your name completely and seal your birth certificate and get adopted by a foster care family. And she did all those things at age 12. She didn't know better. All those ideas were put in by the social worker because the social worker wanted revenge. They do this all the time. I'm trying to tell you, social workers are bad people. You can't trust them. You got to be careful of them. You got to be careful of them. Now, I mentioned earlier in the show about answering the door. Please do not answer the door if the first time that someone's knocked or up into your door. Make arrangements with your family or friends to have a special knock or a special ring. But the reason why you don't want to answer the door, too many people have been killed instantly, been shot and killed by policemen. It's sad, but it's true. So you don't want to answer the door. You want to go to the other part of the house and be quiet. Listen, after a time period, then you can check the door, and there'll usually be a business card or someone to contact. Otherwise, if nothing's there, then don't worry about it. It's not important there. But if you happen to answer the door, don't let them in your home. Tell them that you need to have your attorney present and that you'll contact them when you get a hold of your attorney. Also, they cannot take your children from your home. There's only three ways. One, you give them permission. Two, there's domestic violence going on where a child's in danger and they have to come in. And three, they have a court order or a warrant that specifically says they can take your child. It has to be a legal warrant, one that was issued by a judge with a wet signature and a boss stamp where the signature is raised. It cannot be on days or holidays or the weekend because judges do not work on those days. So it's got to be a legitimate warrant. It's got to give your name, the other person's name, the children's name, the allegations, and what they can do, and what day they can do it. So I'm telling you, don't talk to social workers. They will use what you said against you. Now, my time is almost up, and I want to thank you all for listening. And I want you to still keep fighting for your kids. I'm again on tonight at 7 p.m. And then on Friday, my evening show is at 4 p.m. My evening show is at 4 p.m. So remember that. And so I will look forward to seeing you again. God bless you. And there's an important message that you'll hear. My podcast will stay live. I'll just leave the stage so you can hear this important message.